What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Shuri and her gang of meta decks have finally been put to rest, but that means the Marvel Snap meta throne is up for the taking. And today, I'll be showing you my most competitive decks that I see doing very well as we enter the new meta. Now, if you're currently logging in and now you don't know what deck to play and you're in post-nerf hell, well, today we'll have you covered. We have plenty of decks that I think are very competitive for the new era and new meta. Now, if Marvel Snap's history has told us anything, it means that a new villain will rise up in the Snap community, a new card that everybody hates, and that's where we're going to start today's deck with Sandwave. Now, with Shuri out of the limelight and combine that with Leader's revamp, we're seeing combo decks such as Sarah Miracle and Hitmonkey being very popular within the meta at the moment, which has elevated Sandman control to completely plague the Marvel Snap ladder. Now, a week back, I posted a Sandman deck that was performing really well, even in the overpowered Shuri meta, but now, with that revamp leader, this deck is even more of a force against combo decks and your general decks on the ladder, because you don't need just Dr. Doom and Odin anymore to be successful. You can now rely on multiple cards such as Leader or Devil Dinosaur or Jubilee. Overall, the deck performs at a very high rate and it's dependable, which is why you are seeing it everywhere. I do see eventually this deck dying down, either if it's an OTA nerf to adjust Sandman's power or just other decks have been discovered. Mainly, the deck is all about priority early, Sandman late, and again, you can check the top right-hand corner above or the description below for a complete A to Z guide on how to properly pilot Sandman. There is no question that this is one of the best, if not the best, possible deck to be playing right now if you don't have a huge collection. Sandman just has such a good control over the other decks out there. But moving on, let's get to our next deck. Now, we're still very well in the Hitmonkey season, so of course we have to talk about some monkey decks that are honestly really great right now, and it's why we are seeing Sandman as much as we are. We start with Bounce Disrupt, which was already on the rise before Hitmonkey, and is now even better with the new Season Pass card. Now, it's a bit tough to pilot, and I plan on releasing a deck guide here in the future, but if you've purchased the card and you haven't given it a spin, go ahead and try it out. You don't need a lot to get the deck going, and if you haven't really dived into the Bounce archetype, it has a lot of flexibility. You can control priority by noping out of lanes. There's loads of disruptions with things like Black Widow and Iceman, but then you also have consistent power with the likes of Demon and just bouncing back your cards consecutively. And then the big turn finish of Hitmonkey and Mysterio is really good against pretty much all the matchups right now outside of Sandman, but even against that deck, if you see it coming, you might as well drop the combos early and you still should be good to go. Now, staying on theme with monkey decks, we have to talk about Attack of the Clones. And guys, this one just continues to be on the rise and is absolute fire at the moment. And it's only getting more play in the ladder due to its overall consistency. Now, you'll be using cards that you're already used to like She-Hulk and Moon Girl. And the list benefits off enormous late turn plays and quick power that can't be matched easily. Now, again, it's not the easiest deck to pilot, and you do have to hope for some cards to come on certain turns. And in my opinion, I think Moon Girl is continually underrated because your opponent does not know if you copied your She-Hulk or maybe you copied your Hitmonkey, so your explosive turn finishes are just hard to predict. But the biggest thing going for it is there's multiple win conditions in the deck, which is a big draw to have a lot of players try it out. Now, it's about this point of the video that it's time to bring up Patriot decks, and look, I know what you're saying. They're not the sexiest decks out there. I get it. They're not the most fun to play. But damn it, are they dependable and great at climbing the ladder. Metas come and go. Patriot stays the same. But the good news is there's a lot of variations of decks that you can play with the Patriot in it. And here are a few of my favorites. Now, starting off, we have a Hitmonkey Patriot hybrid that relies on a greedy late turn finish, but is capable of punching up to most decks with either Iron Man's double power or Patriot's ongoing power that can't be reduced. Cards like Valkyrie can counter things like Galactus as well as that Iron Man, and you can counter Shuri and even Leader because they won't have the advantage of your Patriot bonus. If you were to play something like Hulk, it's not going to be the same power. Now, recently rising up in popularity are Patriot decks with the Thing and Abomination, which is nuts because both of these cards have not been played since the early Pool 1 days, if not even then. But honestly, because of that, the deck does very well of just consistent power play with the Patriots bonus and multiple win conditions that can keep up with the power of other decks, as well as just having consistent playthrough. And that's kind of what the Patriots all about, is consistency. Now, lastly, as you guys know by now if you watch the channel, Surprise Ultron is still a surprise. People always doubt this deck, and it's still great because it's hiding behind other decks' opening plays. Now, it used to hide behind kind of a Shuri opening, and the best part is you can always hide behind another deck type. Like, get creative. You can do Carnage and Bucky Barnes, and then you do get the Winter Soldier, which can also be boosted by Patriot, and then it throws your opponent off of what kind of deck you're playing, And then ultimately, Ultron comes out, which is just in a great spot at the moment. The power of the drones with Patriot's bonus is crazy right now and a very good deck to play. Patriot is good against everything at the moment. You have Debris to handle Galactus. Sandman isn't a problem because you have Ultron and Doom as finishers, and Patriot's already on the board, so you have your big bonus. And Leech has been adjusted as well, so you know that you don't have to spam your Patriot out there as quickly as possible. Now, those of you that played the good boy Lockjaw might be disappointed because maybe you played Thanos or another Lockjaw deck. But guys, Lockjaw in a way got a buff, and it's time to learn how to play the card the way it's created now. Now, Lockjaw has the benefit now of being able to put good power into that lane, and it doesn't have to cycle out, which means more consistency overall, because if you pull all of your cards in your hand that you wanted to come out of Lockjaw, you can now play on top of that lane to win it over the opponent. Now, Janejaw is a deck that probably got the biggest boost because you can use Thor's Hammer, let's say on turn 6, to cycle out for another card, and then play whatever other card you want to on turn 6 to follow that up and take over the Lockjaw lane. Very good deck. Definitely will be making a guide on it overall, and I think truly this deck might be in a better spot than it was before the Lockjaw nerf. Now, if you play Thanos, you probably have no idea what to do right now. Lockjaw is gone, and that was his best friend, right? But now, you can play this deck that still utilizes Lockjaw and a bunch of ongoing cards that just spread love wide, where you can utilize the stones, but also power them up with the likes of Blue Marvel and all the other ongoing cards. Now, the Time Stone is going to be important to play your 5-cost cards, but Professor X is a great play, and you can sneak into those lanes. And even Jeff the Shark is not a bad card to include in the deck. One of my current favorites, still experimenting with the deck, but once I have it refined, I'll be making a deck guide on this as well. Now, moving on, we got to talk about Rocks and Hawks, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because I have so many videos on it at this point, but this is my favorite deck in Marvel Snap, and by far, one of the best decks that I've ever put together, and I've seen that from comments from other players and just playing it a ton myself, going all the way back to early January. At its core, the deck just relies on good cards with Darkhawk and Devil Dinosaur combined with Mystique and her copy ability. The thing just slaps. If you have not tested it out and you have the cards, you got to give it a spin. The deck has everything you're looking for. Consistent power. It has great matchups against literally anything out there at the moment. And I've covered the deck extensively up in the video above or again in the description down below. Now, moving on, it's not often that a newly buffed card is just going right into the meta and having a very firm place within some decks. But like I said, Leader has definitely proven that already in the first couple of days. Control has already had a huge presence since really the Space Stone nerf, and this deck is going to rank as one of the harder ones that we talk about today to pilot. But once you learn the early turns and how to set yourself up for success going into turn 5 and letting Leader do the rest on turn 6, you'll be rewarded for learning its hard playstyle with plenty of wins and big cube wins at that. Now, of course, I had to mention Wave 5, guys. I don't have enough good things to say about this combo that can virtually fit into any style of deck. Obviously, Dr. Doom is kind of the favorite right now to follow Wave on turn 5 with the popular deck called Doom Wave. But the emergence of Leader is also a great card. Things like Arrow, Magneto. There's so many that work with the deck. She-Hulk can naturally be played on any turn, but if you happen to have the combo of Wave on 5 and any other card with She-Hulk, typically that's going to lead to a win. Really strong deck as long as you don't let the opponent take advantage of Wave more than you do, and you learn when and when not to play your combos. Simply put, I think this deck and the combos gives you the most creativity because you can just do the Wave 5 method and combine it with other cards that you enjoy playing or the collection you might have. Now listen, I'm sure by now you're probably sick of Shuri, but the good thing is she's not overpowered anymore. She's just in a good competitive space. Now Shuri Post-Nerf is going to operate largely the same to the old Shuri decks outside of using both Cosmo and Armor to protect your Shuri lanes, giving you many more ways to lose, and you also give your opponent a lot more predictability on what you're going to do, which is why I like Vision and Captain Marvel as my prime Shuri cards. Really, anything with high power, right? You can do Stature, you can do Maximus. Anything that has high power is going to work with the doubling effect. But I will say, guys, you just need to know when to nope out, right? It's pretty obvious if you're going to win or not in the late turns. So if you're not, go ahead and retreat, and that's how you can consistently climb still with a Shuri deck. Now, I did bring up Stature, so I want to quickly just show a Stature deck that's kind of on the rise. There's a lot floating out right now, and most of them have Shuri, which naturally does work with the card, but if you don't want to run Shuri, This Stature deck has been awesome for me, and in about 100 games, I have well above a 70% win rate. So if you have any interest into Stature, this is definitely something you can test out. But talking about discard as a whole, we do need to bring up discard because it is always still a major sleeper. Now, I will say Sandman is going to be a bit of a problem if you're relying on the Swarm version of the deck, but the pure power value that you get out with only playing one card at a time, like Calling Wing or MODOK to power up your Morbius, is going to do well against Sandman in a large majority of the other decks out there. Love discard. If you got MODOK, or if you're thinking about unlocking him now that he's in Pool 4, you have yourself a consistent deck that you just don't see on the ladder, so people forget how to play against it. Kneel before, one of the most hated cards currently. Galactus may eventually be toned down, but until then, you can completely ruin plenty of decks on the ladder at the moment. If you're looking to climb slowly but surely, you can go with the more Spider-Man deck as you see here, and this is going to be kind of your more easy street to loads of 2 cube wins. However, if you're looking to feast on overconfident players and secure some high cube wins, then you can go with a deck more like this. But overall, the main mission is to learn the priority dance and then stay under the radar that you're about to play Galactus. That's the biggest thing about the deck. Now, I have a large guide, one of the biggest I've ever made on Galactus. You can check that in the top right-hand corner above to learn the ins and outs on how to operate the deck. Now, finally, guys, we bring the decks on the rise to a close. I have many more, but I'll be doing some deck guides, so keep your eyes out. Now, things like Sarah Control aren't on the list because people are pretty well aware of those decks at this point, and it still slaps, and if you need to check those out, feel free to go ahead and scan the channel. But we have Silver Surfer. Now, we've talked about Surfer somewhat lately, but it's a great deck at the moment to handle a lot that's out there and kind of floating in the early meta. It can beat Sandman depending on the Surfer deck you play. It can counter Galactus. It can do well against these new kind of lockjaw builds. Overall, very solid, and you have your kind of option of Surfer play. If you want to go the control route, you can go with the deck that you see here. But at the same time, as always, you can go the Patriot route that is just a continual force against things like Sandman, like I just talked about. So, Silver Surfer, great deck, and one last time, I do have full guides on all these, and I will put it in the description below. So there you go, guys. Those are all the competitive decks to help you survive post-nerf hell. Remember, guys, the meta takes some time to settle, and a lot of cards got adjusted, so there's a lot of shifts and balancing. You know, let's try not to get the torches out just yet. We just put the mobs down from Shuri, and I know Sandman and other decks are quite annoying, but let's go and see how everything works itself out. I want to thank you guys for coming by, hanging out today. If you find yourself coming back here, you can help support the channel a lot and support me and my content creation by subscribing down below. On our way to 100,000 subs. Absolutely crazy. I wish you good luck out there in the ladder as the season is coming to a close. And until the next one, happy snapping.